And then we'll go into the showcases. The showcases are demos for people who haven't been here before. We're an advisory education group, really focus on practical issues with strong business ROI. While they're important, we're not focused on the AI ethics and AI killing us all. The team tenets tends to be about 50% business, 50% technical. Learning lab, this session we call learning lab, is a really important part of the share group learning. We find a lot of value out of it. We've got a newsletter, we've got a website, doing tons of workshops. We're actually turning down workshops right now because the interest is so high and we can't stop them right now. And we enjoy connecting people. It's a really fun part of the early part of this market here. Looks like we've got someone. I'll stop sharing my screen. End meeting, that's not good. How about the share button? All right, guys, hang on here. Watching me click around.
Hey, Bob, while we're doing this, what part of the world are you in? I'm just south of Boston.
I'm sorry, me?
Yeah.
I live in Northern California. So grew up in Boston until age 40, more than a few years ago, and moved out to Silicon Valley back in '97. Been here since.
Wow.
We sometimes have Adam call in from Australia. I don't know if he's on. And we sometimes get some folks from, here we go. So Bob, can you see my screen or someone else?
I can see it.
Yes.
Great. Just so other intros, we publish, we're really in the use cases. We've got 15 or probably 20 use cases on YouTube. We're probably behind in doing that now, but very interested now. We get a lot of good response from it. We have a networking group that's free. It's called AI Woodstock. This Wednesday, we're going to be in New York City, 6 p.m. at New Time Out Market, New York, which is on 55 Water Street in Brooklyn. We've got, I think, 150, 180 people, 100 signed up for that. We'll probably get another 100 there before Wednesday. And we're going to do our next one in Boston. It will be our third Monday, June 26th, and head of the MIT big conference. We've been helping a lot of different organizations. One of the ones we're helping with a generative AI summer series is a Harvard Business School through their digital data design. The first of that free series starts off next Thursday. Actually, this Thursday. My week's wrong. This Thursday, 2 days at 3 p.m. Eastern. I'll stick in the chat links to all these events, but Shakar and Hans Peter, who's a professor over in the computer science at Harvard. We've been doing a lot more LinkedIn live events. These are like webinars. They're free webinars on LinkedIn. We have one on June 13th with Rosemary. She's been part of our community for a while and has done a lot of work with best practices and ChatGPT plugins, which are fantastic. If you got a chance to use them, they're a optional add-on, or they're a beta option when you do the paid version.
Hey, Paul, before you go on, Rosemary's been not only a significant contributor here, but if you go to her website, which is called To the Web, she sends out this weekly, bi-weekly, monthly kind of newsletter, and it has some pretty cool tips and tricks that I've found useful.
That's great. But Bob, if you get a chance, you might just put that in the chat. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, she's great, and she's out like a lot of these markets, the smaller, more innovative companies that get out faster on the use case, and she's definitely one of them, working with mostly small companies, although she's got some big clients as well. One of the problems she has, some of her big clients, they engage her and then they come out with a policy of banning employee use of ChatGPT, which is not good for her business. This one we had to reschedule because of technical thing. This is Alex. He's over in Scotland. He's a CTO at a firm, and he's got a fabulous set of content on using Midjourney and ChatGPT for marketing. And we're getting this process of rescheduling this. I think right now it's going to be June 14th via LinkedIn Live. Lots of in-person events here in Boston. I will be speaking at two of them actually on June 16th. One of them is Transition AI. It's about AI in clean tech. It's down at Convene, Boston, which is a facility near the Faneuil Hall. And then the second one in the afternoon, its name escapes me. It's in the same area. We've got a lot of experience, or we get a lot of feedback from a lot larger companies on a lot of the IP issues. Marty Gomez is the lead IP lawyer at Goodwin, who's a big law firm. Goodwin's actually a counsel of record for OpenAI. And Martin and I are working on a free webinar through LinkedIn Live in the next few weeks, dealing with some of the, explain what he's seeing and his advice for some of the top IP issues here. You know, who owns the IP? What happens when you go in the DALL-E and type, do a, image of Bob SquarePants and get around licensing? What happens in Getty Images, for instance, they got, I think, a $2 billion lawsuit against OpenAI for sucking up their watermarked data, et cetera. So lots of good topics there. It's one of the issues that comes up again and again when we're talking with companies. For folks in Boston, June 27th, if you haven't registered, I encourage you to do it. This is a major in-person event at MIT's Computer Science and AI Center. It's called CSAIL. And it's put on by John Warner and Daniela Russ, who's the director over there. And they're doing a whole bunch of things, one of which is they're having it's a 60th year anniversary CSAIL. So they're having 60 of the academics or PIs do a brief overview of what research they're doing. They're also having 30 to 40 startups do AI startups do 1 minute pitch. And I think probably going to be a couple thousand people that will apply for these free tickets. Getting a lot of background in someone's noise, if you can mute. And I think MIT will want to let everyone in, but the fire marshal at some point will make John and Danielle cut it off. So I encourage, and they'll probably sort it just by who registered first. So go ahead and register. I think a link out there. It's also be a great networking event. Also, if you have AI startups in the Boston, New York area, or somebody wants to fly in, that we are still looking for quality ones to do a pitch for the community. This is a coming together here. We're going to put on our own show. It's called Generative AI World in Boston, September 12th and 13th. It's going to be at the Royal Sonesta. 2 days. We're going to focus on corporate enterprise use of generative AI. We've got a whole bunch of good speakers already. And we're right now just really focused on confirming some of the major sponsors. We've got 6 right now that we're on discussions with, but expect more out of this. This will be a very case-centric, use case-centric. I mean, my goal is to probably have 40 corporate use cases and small nuggets over the next 2 days. So that's any questions on all that big event stuff. So lots going on. We are busy up the gazoo here. If you're not, then you're missing part of what's going on in AI, because it's really cranked up in the last certainly the last 2 weeks. Before I introduce it to Igor, any other comments or contributions people want to make before we start? I've got 2 other ones that people haven't seen it. I'm holding up, it's now a book, but by far Stefan Wolfram has really defended this, about a 40-page technical blog of exactly how ChatGPT works. It's quite technical, but it gives you a sense, even for the non-technical people, of all the sophistication under that. And you can buy an Amazon self-published for $8 or $10 or something, but it's a good read for people who really want to understand better how it works. And then lastly, a lot of new good classes are coming out. I know deep learning has come out with some great classes. Google's come out with some 101 classes on generative AI, as has Microsoft. So if you haven't seen those, do a Google search on those. And tonight we want to focus on, get back to some prompts. So we've got at the memo at the end, if we have some time, people may have seen it, that OpenAI's come out with their own best practices, which is, some of them were new to me. So it's actually very interesting to see what they're saying is best practice here. And we're delighted to have Igor here, who's done a lot of work on this. And Igor, do you want to introduce yourself and share some of the best practices and open up for training? At the end, then we'll do some use cases.
Sure. My name is Igor Balk, and one of common friends invited me to be here today. Thank you, Paul, for hosting me. I'm CEO of a company called Global Innovation Labs. We do consulting and education field of AI and machine learning. We also run some classes for kids, actually, in Lexington, here in person. And I just published a book on Amazon, Mastering ChatGPT Prompts. It's currently ranked #1 in new releases in big data and business, and #5 overall in big data and business.
Congrats.
I would be happy to show you some fun stuff which you can do with ChatGPT later today when we will show cases. Other than that, I'm happy to be here. And thank you, Paul.
Go ahead. Yeah, so I'll give you the mic. So why don't you share your screen and walk us through some of the things.
Sure.
And I think from a standpoint, you've got some people who maybe 30% who are very interested and haven't spent much time. And on the other side, we've got some data scientists and engineers who are technical. And we've also got another 10% that probably spend 5 to 30 hours a week on it. So a real wide variety.
Okay.
We can see your
What I will be doing today is completely not technical, as well as the book. It's completely not technical. It's made for general public, so you will be able to read it and like see how you can use ChatGPT in different scenarios. And I have some fun tips and tricks how to use it in a better way. And what I would like to share with you today is a few fun techniques. How many of you knows about technique called chain prompting? Basically, chain prompting is when you kind of ask series of questions to ChatGPT, and in that way, it acts much better than if you will kind of put a lot of stuff in one question. But other use of chain prompting is to make ChatGPT act as something else, like, for example, job interviewer or tour guide or even video game. So today we will talk about video games. How many of you remember text-based video games? You probably, like, most of you are not old enough, but like many of you remember, like, we had mods, we had different kind of online games when you were typing stuff, and the computer was responding to you with different situations where you were supposed to do something. So today we will try to make ChatGPT act as a video game. Before we will start, I will mention one more technique we will use today. How many of you knows about let's do step by step? Yeah, basically it's technique which instructs ChatGPT to do small steps at a time. And again, in that way, it gets much better results in solving problems, doing chain prompting and stuff like this. So we will instruct ChatGPT to do act step by step. Let's think step by step. Now we will instruct it to be a video game. The next step is we will ask it at each step to give us 4 options how to respond. Because video game is kind of complex, big field, we will use off-the-shelf rules. How many of you knows about Dungeons and Dragons game, D&D? Yeah, so we'll use D&D rules. Now we have to say that we have to generate our character, right? And again, like according to best practices of use ChatGPT, it's better to start with something ChatGPT can follow. So we will say that race is elf, right? Let's see what will happen. Magic. So now we can say, let's say, 1 to pick our character class. We have 4 options. Let's say we are wizard. So we will use option 2 to use standard roles. We will do just random assignment, right? Even if I mistype, it will still understand what I'm doing. Now, as we did it, and it didn't give us any options what to do next, so we will ask. You see, so basically we see how chain prompting and let's step by step do in really funny setting, and it's really fun use of ChatGPT. I even seen app on App Store, which kind of creates Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master, basically like Game Master out of ChatGPT, and you could just play the game with ChatGPT or play with your friends and have ChatGPT act as your DM. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you.
Fun.
I'm sure there's lots of questions, but go ahead and raise your hand if you got questions, and I'll give a. I'll start. A lot of times we've seen some people where it says, you know, act as an expert in, or you are. What's your view on telling what role it is versus just telling someone's their intention?
I always use role, and I always use something which will set up the tone. For example, act in a way describe in a way my grandma will understand, or like 5 years old will understand, or like Steve Jobs will write it, or Shakespeare will write it. It helps you a lot to do it in the right way. For example, if you like even writing blog post or social media post, if you write it for different social medias, it should be slightly different tone. So always tell ChatGPT to write for LinkedIn or for Facebook or for Twitter or for whatever media you use. I do believe that it really helps.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yuri, go ahead.
Thanks, Paul. Hi, Igor. That was really fun. So I was wondering, to what extent was it so successful because you chose something like Dungeons and Dragons, which obviously has a lot published on it and is a well-known game? And what if you were to try to define the rules, more if for a completely novel game, and so completely manually, would it do as well?
It will work perfectly. I did several experiments. Basically, you have to describe a set of rules, and it will act upon it. If you miss something, it will invent rules, and you probably wouldn't like it. But if you have like well-defined set of rules, it will act upon it.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Basically, it all comes down to giving examples. It's another well-known technique of working with ChatGPT is giving set of examples. It's not necessarily game rules, but for example, if you like need to extract some data or write some email or template, you can give a ChatGPT example of what you're looking for, and it will act using these examples as template. Not necessarily like game rules, it could be like anything. For example, you can say, hey, this is like 10 different leases for commercial real estate. Come up with new lease, which will be combination of this 5, whatever.
I just want to pause for one quick second. We continue to have challenges with Zoom. Someone's to send me messages, another 10 people in the waiting room somewhere else. Has anyone else had trouble getting in? You guys obviously always get in here, so if you know people or they're texting you, let me know. Actually, I got a few more texts here. Thanks. Share other things. Have you looked at Bard and Bing and Claude and some of those as well, or are you mostly focused just on ChatGPT?
No, not only. I actually have fun running my local Llama model. Actually, I was able to run Llama 65 billion on my M1 processor, which is kind of challenging.
Yeah.
But using a Llama CPP, you can compress the data, and actually, it's amazing. Like it just about 32 gigabyte data file with weights, which contains all the human knowledge. It's just amazing how it works.
How long did it take you to set that up?
Well, I'm not average user, right?
Okay.
It didn't took me very long because I already had like PyTorch environment and everything. But probably for like average computer science manager user, it probably will take you like a couple of hours or something. It's not that long if you have like enough processor power. If you don't have, it will be like probably a day or two.
Yeah.
It's down to like how much memory you have, because like Lambda 65 billion model in itself is about like 130 gigabytes. So if you don't have enough memory and enough GPU power, you wouldn't be able to run it in like a realistic time frame.
Yeah.
So you have to have like a really nice GPU setup, or use Colab or Amazon Cloud or something.
Have you seen some of those open source ones where you can run it on your phone?
I had this model. It doesn't give you like any good results at all, because it doesn't have like enough data. I didn't run Falcon yet, Falcon 40 billion, but it's still like relatively large. It couldn't run on a cell phone yet.
Yeah. But is your viewpoint that within 12 months, we'll have continued to see improvements that we'll see?
I would say in 5-10 years, you would be able to run it on your cell phone.
Okay.
It's not about like model itself, because like whatever we're using like as a basic model, as like to generate these models, right? Mathematical algorithms wouldn't be able to produce that compact model, so you would be able to run it on a cell phone. But we are not like sitting at the same place. We are running actually, right? So I believe that like in a few years, we will come up with completely different mathematics, which would be able to compress all the data we need into like cell phone size data set.
Whoever, I apologize, we're now getting a few more people in. I apologize. I don't know why we're having trouble with the LinkedIn. Igor, have you looked at the new best practices that OpenAI just published? And if you have, what are your views on them?
They're pretty basic, I would say. If you use just this best practice, you wouldn't be able to get much out of ChatGPT, but it's kind of core information you're supposed to follow if you want to get any results at all.
Yeah. Well, fabulous. I see a lot of new folks here. So thanks for
Bob, some question, I believe.
Yeah, Igor, we're talking about putting a large language model or language model on a computer. Is there open source models that are small enough that you could run on a well-configured Mac computer?
Well, as I said,
not for production, but for experimentation?
No. As I have said, I was able to run even 65 billion Llama, which is open source Facebook model, and which is like second best as of now, on my MacBook Pro with M1 processor and 32 gig of memory. If you're talking about like Llama 30 billion or Llama 7 billion, it runs really, really fast. So without any problem.
So I have the same configuration you have with the M2 processor. Is there a way to get started, or what are your suggestions getting started with something easy just to look?
And I will drop links into chat. So
Okay,
you
great.
get started.
Thank you.
But first thing you have to do, you have to request a license to Llama model from Facebook, because it's not completely open source. It's free for use, but they will send you a link to download.
Okay, thank you.
Bob, I put in the chat one open source one that I'm told works on iPhone. I haven't tested it myself, but I've had 3 people send it to me. I know there's a few of them out there. There's also a long post that someone else wrote on LinkedIn. I'm trying to find up as well as how to get this is running locally as well. I saw Adam from Australia. Are you on? Did I see you click in?
Good morning, Paul. Yeah, I was hanging out in the lobby party for the last half hour.
I don't know why that is happening. So how did you finally get in then? Did something change? Or did
You DM'd me the link, and I shared it into the lobby chat. So hopefully a lot of the other people waiting got the link from that chat and joined this call.
Great. I did.
You've set something up, Paul. You've set something up now where it's like, in the past I had to join RSVP every week, and now I'm like a recurring attendee. And it seems like the invite I got, I didn't have to RSVP. I got a link, and it might be the people who are getting that one, and you're creating an original every week as well or something. I don't know, but it seemed like there ended up being 2 meetups, and a bunch of us went to the wrong one.
Yeah, my apologies. I'm clear all that out 2 weeks ago, but anyway, I will not take minutes here, but thank you, and thank you for your patience on that. Adam, we're walking through some prompt engineering. We're talking through, I already walked through, just published a book on it. He walked through an example of doing a video game. And then we got in discussion of people actually downloading it themselves for different open source. Have you, Adam, spent any time downloading it to your own laptops in Australia there?
No, I haven't. As you know, I was doing my 100 days of ChatGPT, so I didn't look much into the other models. And since I finished that, I've basically been building, so I haven't been exploring new models at all. But yeah, I was appreciating what I was hearing Igor share as I joined, though. It's pretty exciting to even imagine that we can run these things locally. It offers up so much potential.
What other questions do we have for on prompt engineering? For someone who just wrote a book that's #1 on one category at Amazon. This shy group here. We're usually not this shy. I think we're maybe retired. So
it's okay.
Share your views down on Bard and Bing and some of the others here. We started going down that path. What's your views on those? And do you see value? Are they going to catch up, or is ChatGPT going to stay the winner?
I think in a few years we will see like 5 to 10 models, and quite frankly, I believe that open source models will win at the end of the day, because people would be able to tweak them. It's like same with PC architecture. When IBM made open architecture for PCs, it won over proprietary architecture of Apple, even though like IBM by itself lost. So I believe that like at the end of the day, we will see many more open source models, and we will see how it will evolve. It would be like really fun next 5 years.
So Paul, I have a slightly different view. I'd like to share it with Igor and have him comment on it, if that's okay.
Please. This is like a real-time debate rather than debating with the large language model.
Well,
human language model.
I'm not sure I view my side as a debate, but more of a hypothesis. So Igor, I think in the general purpose large language models, there's going to be 3 remaining. We know who those are: OpenAI, Microsoft, and Google. I think, personally, I think Claude's going to go the way of WebVan. Too little, too late. It's actually out here in Silicon Valley. I went to a deep tech web in-person meetup kind of thing. And it's kind of like a laughing stock, you know, relative to the heavyweights in the tech space. But I also think there's going to be a large category of vertical language models, you know, finance. There's a science one that just came out that's coming out from Intel. They're going to appear in all different vertical domains. You know, Bloomberg GPT was probably the first major announcement. And in terms of open source models, I think those will be more, just personal view, is more for experimentation, early phase, almost like what happened if you remember Linux came out and Red Hat was the one that commercialized it later. But the open source models, because they're less supported for large commercial operations, will be more for, let's call it prototyping, maybe some companies that can't afford, you know, some of the for pay ones. Anyway, that's just a hypothesis. I was curious if you have a view with that.
I would say that there are at least a few players you haven't mentioned. For example, you haven't mentioned Apple. Naturally, they will have something Siri will evolve into, right?
Claudia Marie
Bayer. Same goes to NVIDIA. They probably will have their own gameplay. Speaking about open source models, let's say you're a financial company. You don't really want to use third-party anything to play with your financial data. So you have no choice but use open source model and train it on your data and use it. Same goes to like a software development company or like anyone with dealing with proprietary information. So you have no choice other than go to with some kind of open source model and train it with your data.
Great.
And you can keep it private at that point, I'm presuming, once you've trained it with your own data.
Exactly.
All right, I get it. Thank you.
Great. I want to keep moving. Any last questions for Igor?
Igor, just how long do you think it takes to train a decent prompt engineer?
I would say that good product manager will make a decent prompt engineer at some point, because essentially it all comes down to product management. If you can set up a good task list for your developers, you would be able to set up right task list for ChatGPT or like any other language models. So it's all comes down to product management at the end of the day. That's my opinion.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you. So John, I want to see if you want to share your the framework again. We got such good feedback on before that, but before we do that, are there any other use cases or examples or things that people want to share? We'll have an open mic here.
Yeah, Paula, it's Adam Mentis.
Go ahead,
over
Adam.
in- I was going to throw my hand up and I couldn't find the button, so I just jumped off mute. Thanks. I was about a month ago, I went into one of the children's charities here in Melbourne just as a volunteer thing and did a corporate workshop for them on ChatGPT. And I followed up yesterday with the head of fundraising, and she said that she had she does an electronic direct mailing campaign, right? EDM. In the past, she has to do 34 different categories in terms of like bespoke messaging to the different target audiences. She said in the past it takes her a full week, and she got it done in a day this time. So I might have to point her your way and get a video. But like, you know, I share this stuff with people, and I always tell them it's so amazing and it's going to make a difference. But when I start hearing situations like that and it's not theoretical, man, it blows my mind, and it gets me so excited to share it with more people.
Adam, I would love to do a video, and she's non-technical, right? This is a non-technical.
Oh yeah, no, this is the head of fundraising for a children's charity. It's about as non-technical. I mean, she's savvy to you know, she's, I guess, what you would call a knowledge worker, right? She works with computers every day, but yeah, she's not an engineer or a developer or something.
People may have seen a few weeks ago, we had Elizabeth Planet, who runs a nonprofit, is also non-technical, you know, build her own ChatGPT using her own PDFs and some other websites for her nonprofit for under $500 using a product called custom GPT, and it was, that's also on YouTube if people want to find it, but it was quite interesting. Well, good. Any other?
Well,
Go ahead.
I'm just want to jump in, Val from Colombia. I was actually doing a task. I work for a fintech, and I'm not technical at all. I just started in tech about a year ago, and I got assigned a project for my company to start building our own model with a bunch of company data. So I'm excited, getting started. Might reach out to a couple of you guys if you can help. I'm actually looking into custom GPT to build the model, but excited, man, pumped up.
That's great. Well, really, welcome. Is this your first meeting of joining us?
No. This is I've been following you like for a long time. Val from Colombia, you probably remember me.
I do. Okay. Well, thank you. Well, welcome back. And, reach out as well. Many companies are asking us how to do the LMLs for themselves. Custom. We don't have any financial arrangement. Custom GPT is one. There's 4 or 5 others out there, and there's going to be many out there. But it's quite exciting on that, and particularly as the cost is coming down. And for companies I've been with, where there's some anxiousness about IP risk or security risk, you can have 100% no risk large language model experiment. You can put it behind your firewall with your public data and just have your employees use it as a way to start learning, and not think that it's actually pragmatic business practice and not do anything for 12 months like you did on Metaverse. But go ahead, Kevin. Kevin, we'll jump to you and then we'll go to John.
Right. Yeah. So, and I think you might have addressed the question, but I had dinner with a woman last night who's authored seven books and several articles. And she reckons that she's got about 1.2 million words published out there, right? Unique from across her body of work. And she'd asked me to come back to her with some recommendations on what tool could she upload all of this work into that could create for her clients a mechanism to query her body of work or ask it questions or something like that, like a chatbot type thing. Is that custom GPT or is that something else? If anyone has a recommendation.
Well, there's two. So certainly custom GPT is one option. There's a few others. I don't want to just promote them, but there's one. And if people haven't seen it and have ChatGPT 4, you can get the plugins, and there's Ask PDF where you can upload a PDF. Integrate. Now, what she wants it for her own clients, I think. So I think
she wants it for her own clients.
Yeah, ChatGPT and 2 or 3 of the others I know of, I'm just spacing on them, would work on that. Do anyone else have other options? Like let Kevin in the chat.
Okay, Paul, Adam again. There's the LangChain solution with a Pinecone database.
So we're talking non-tech woman here. She's
it's a different question if she wants to buy versus build a solution, though, isn't it?
She doesn't want to build. She just wants one off the shelf.
Well, I mean, so what I'm saying, I'm talking about a solution that someone could implement for her, and then it would just, people could chat with the PDFs of her books. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, she wouldn't be the one to implement it. I wouldn't recommend that. What I was mentioning, Kevin, I'll just put the describers in the chat for you.
Superb. Good on you, mate.
Yuri, go ahead. You've got your hand up.
Thanks, Paul. So I hope this isn't too far off the reservation, but I figured I'd ask the question here for future usages. So there was an announcement, I guess maybe it was a little while ago, but again recently about Google's MedPalm 2, I think it's called. So it's Palm, which is, I guess, is their own language model. It trains specifically on medical information, which seems to be geared towards sort of answering actual medical questions. And I was wondering whether anyone in the group had perhaps some insider knowledge or maybe just some expertise on that, so we can get a little bit of a preview about where that might be going and what that actually does. A little bit of an open-ended question.
So I touched on it, a little bit earlier in this vertical space.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT 3.5 scores a 60% against the US medical license exam. 4.0 is actually at 89%. And that's about, right now, Palm 2 is still, hasn't been released yet. It's supposed to be released in the next few months. The expectation based on the testing is showing it at 86%. So it's going to be, basically, this is the beginning of the end of WebMD is the way to think about it. So the challenge with 89% for GPT-4 is it's been trained on a whole lot of stuff. So even though it gets such a high rating, it also includes a lot of stuff that hasn't been vetted. So MedPalm 2 is specifically medical only. So you're less likely in that 10% to get bad advice. And that's kind of why there's a lot of excitement behind it.
Yeah, and it's hard to put into perspective what, let's say it's 90%, right? What 90% really means. I mean, I know, 90% of the questions that you asked it according to some exam, but what would that really mean in practice? And does anyone, what's kind of the word on the street? Would it be equivalent to, let's say, a really good doctor, to actually have a conversation with a really good doctor? Would it really be at that level?
So my 2 cents, and certainly others who may be more knowledgeable can add, you have to think about what you're asking. Is the issue you're inquiring about a common issue? Well, that's going to be in the 100% answer. If it's a rare disease kind of thing where there's only a few in the world, then you don't know. That's probably in that 10% kind of range. There are studies that have recently come out. I don't have quick access to them, but basically showing that people prefer to talk to a GPT-like model than actually talk to the doctor. Consistency, no biases, no emotions, and that sort of thing. And I made this comment last time, but 2024 is going to be the year of when psychotherapy goes online in a major way for exactly that reason. It's not super technical, but it'll help a lot of people gain access to a lot of good advice.
So let's,
Bob, sorry, go ahead, Paul. Sorry, I was going to.
Go ahead. You're one last one, and then we'll keep us moving.
Sorry, yeah. So I was just going to ask, Bob or anyone else, does anyone know whether MedPalm 2 would be released in a way that, like, as an API, the way that ChatGPT opened up itself, or are the plans for the next 10 years to kind of keep it proprietary, so that it's not misused, perhaps, or for whatever reason? Anyone know what Google's plans are? Yeah.
Google hasn't publicly stated, but if you go search on Google for MedPalm 2, you can find the articles where they've made announcements, a lot of links and that sort of thing. So you might be able to pick it up, some inkling, but
read between the lines,
yeah. There's a lot of stuff on it.
So I want to spend the last few minutes, John, if you're ready, I want to turn over to my colleague and co-founder, John Sviokla, who's been working on a financial model, or the kind of structure model. He shared a little bit of it last week. We got some new people this week. We got a lot of good feedback from that. It could take up a couple hours of conversation. So I just want John to kind of show you guys at high level where we're going and give us some feedback. And we're moving from the technical level up a few levels on the business side. Go ahead, John. We can see your screen.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Now you guys, okay, then yeah, it's pleasure to be with you folks again. So basically, just trying to understand, help executives figure out, okay, should they worry about the stuff right now or not? And I think the clearest near-term thing is it going to hit my cost base right away? That's it's not going to change industry structure. We're doing some research. It generally takes about 5 to 7 years to change industry structure and do the disruptive change. And if you go back and look at like when Uber was started versus when taxi medallions went down, it's about 5 to 7 years. So we're very interested in like what's today, and then we're gonna have some predictions about the future with quote unquote disruption. And the basic idea here is to look heavily at the cost base, because it's a fiduciary responsibility of a senior executive at any place. If there's a material, technology, process, or source that can change your cost base significantly, they have a fiduciary responsibility to explore it and then implement it where appropriate, right? And that's a now thing. So if you look at the cost base, we're not picking knowledge workers. And Bob, thanks for some of those references and so forth. If you look at like the Accenture work and Goldman, and OpenAI has a call for research and so forth, it talks about knowledge workers and portions of tasks within knowledge workers. And as I've talked to executives, they find that kind of like, well, what's really a knowledge worker? Isn't everybody kind of a knowledge worker? My carpenter's a knowledge worker, and so forth, right? And so we try to get a more narrow definition you could actually get costs around. And so that's this WINS work. We're asserting a subcategory of knowledge work is the way I think about it. And that's people whose fundamental work is words, images, numbers, and sounds, sometimes together, sometimes majoring in one or the other. And these, of course, go across, Dan Bricklin, the inventor of the spreadsheet, along with Stu Frankston, once told me that 70% of all the material in spreadsheets is non-numeric. So kind of interesting, right? So words, images, numbers, and sounds. And then the question is, how digitized is that current work that you're doing? So down the bottom, very much focused on cost as a competitive issue. What's the percentage of your cost base that's in WINS work? Okay. And then on the digitization of work, how digitized is the capability or process or whatever? Okay. Already. And then if you look at what kind, here are some example industries, and you saw the whole thing with Hollywood and everything. Entertainment for sure, right? Complete in pretty much the entire cost. The vast majority of the cost base is WINS work. Software, professional services. I was a partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers. The entire P&L. The PwC doesn't have a capital budget, right? They don't have any assets other than people and some software, and they write those software assets off very, very quickly. It's all labor, right? And in some of the early going, I was running marketing. There's some folks who were put together a little bit of a small AI tool and an OCR tool. And for those of you who understand, partnerships and stuff, K1 consolidation is a big deal for these big massive asset owners. And they were able to take out 90% of the labor in K1 consolidation. That's a big number. For PwC, there are small jobs, $250,000, $5 million, something like that. But you can take 90% of the labor out. Insurance, for sure. Education, fundamentally transformed. If we go down the sheltered, these were pointed out before, landscaping, dry cleaning, guns and ammo. Guns and ammo demand's been going very high, ever since Obama was elected. It's been like the old Vegas numbers, just keeps going like that. Then leveraged. This is where the WINS work is incredibly important to the value proposition, but this isn't necessarily a big part of the cost base. So if you look at oil and gas, for example, I think it's been over 3 decades since a major oil company drilled a dry hole, because they have 3D seismic and they can go in and predict. So that's WINS work, but it's not a big part of their overall cost base. So you can leverage a lot of the assets by using these technologies there. And then latent are really about ones that need to be transformed, usually around digitizing some experience. So if you look at acute care hospitals right now and what's going on with private equity buying up a bunch of those, folks like LifePoint, they're very concerned about managing the patient before they get in the hospital, when they leave the hospital, rehab, readmissions, all that stuff. Could be hugely leveraged. And the cost, just to give you an idea, the cost difference between a well-managed diabetes patient and a poorly managed one can be $10,000 versus $1 million. So these are huge numbers that we're talking about if they could get it right. Same with an asthma patient, $300 to a minimum of $15,000 if they walk into an emergency room, usually higher, $50,000 or something like that. Anyway, so we're pretty excited about this. Seems to be communicating with folks, and it's just it's the beginning. And if people are in transformed or leveraged industries and they don't act now, the challenge is that, let's say it's going to go out 3-4 years. People are going to build, vertical LLMs. They're going to leverage the open source, leverage some of the big ones. Then what's going to happen is the capital markets understand, oh my goodness, that's a new model. That new model is going to crush the old model, whether those capital markets are public or private. And then what happens to the incumbent, Blockbuster, Macy's, somebody like that, is three things happen to them simultaneously. First of all, their cost of capital goes through the roof compared to the competition, so they can't reinvest. Second is talent bleeds out of there. It's like, I don't want to be at Macy's, I want to go to Amazon. And the third thing is that a lot of times they get hampered by existing protocols and or regulations, the way Uber and the taxis did. So if you're in a transformed business and you get on today, you're going to wake up 3-4 years from now, and then you're going to be disrupted. Then you get a problem you can't get out of. So anyway, that's kind of where we're headed with this. Happy comments, costs.
Right, yeah, Bob's got one. Go ahead, Bob, and we'll.
Just a quick question. Your acronym is cute, of course, but where's the video fit into the model?
Oh, images,
Okay.
not just still images.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Just a clarification.
Yeah. I'm glad you think it's cute.
I do. I do.
You remind me of, they were talking to who's the guy, Angus Young and Brian Johnson on AC/DC, and they're releasing their new Back to Black album, I think, or something like that. And one of the commentators said, "Hi man, a lot of guys say that, you guys have just been, doing the same album. This is just the 15th release of the same album." And Brian leans forward and Cherry looks at me, goes, "It's a fucking good album, isn't it?"
Just on the sound, and I think you really one of the big spaces we have to pay attention to is sound. And as I've done some side work with some of the police forces on how they're using AI. And New York uses AI and sound to triangulate gunshots fired in the city of New York. And their response time to get a squad car, they have a squad car en route to that intersection where those shots were fired, at least 2 minutes before anyone bothers to call them.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely, Kevin. And one other thing, I do need to leave at the hour, I'm sorry for that. There's a woman by the name of Rita Singh at Carnegie Mellon, and I had her do a presentation one time at an event we're holding. And she took from 60 seconds of my voice, she was able to profile my height, my height within an inch, my weight within 5 pounds, my age within 2 years, my blood pressure within 5 points, a profile of my face, a complete description of the room I was in, a personality profile, and it also said there was something wrong with my skeleton. I have a knee replacement in my right knee. 60 seconds of voice, you can get all that. So absolutely, sound is going to go nuts. And because to me, it's just another. It's an isomorphic representation. It has to do with the other semantics that are in the model. And if you can go from pictures to sound to human, like the difference between somebody recording me with this behind me, my tone of voice, gestures, all that other stuff, there's a ton of information there that that's going to get. And as I understand the transformer models, I'm teaching myself the math. I think it's going to capture a lot of that.
Yeah, I think we have to really think about sound as something beyond music or what we traditionally think of sound. There's a whole world of sound that we just don't think about. And thank you for including that in the model.
Yes.
Kevin, we just did a project for Casino, which is quite similar to what you just described. And
What's it called?
I couldn't mention the client.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was actually violence detection in security cameras video. So we were able to, with accuracy about like 85%, recognize if something bad is happening using video and sound. So response time of like security crew went down significantly, and like it was enormous success. But in general, I believe that street cameras will use something like this in nearby future.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for another good meeting. Ira, thank you so much for joining, and great to see a lot of familiar faces. And Bob and you and Mike might have the most times. Maybe we'll need to start giving surprises for that, although Adam's pretty close as well. So thank you everyone. Have a great day in Australia, and good evening for everyone else. Thank you.